Edgar grabbed a pen from his pocket protector and began looking around for what I assumed was something to write on, and Bob took a seat on the couch. Stephen leaned over to me and asked, whispering, "Did you see that?" "Yeah," I whispered back. "What was that?" he asked. "I don't know, but we're in hell, so," I replied. "Right," he said, nodding his head. After a couple of minutes, Edgar found a notepad, then asked, "Okay, what are your names? Stage names, I mean. And who plays what? You know, like what instruments?" We all stood there staring at him. Apparently the other three saw it as well. "Oh, the eye blinking thing. Right," he said, chuckling a snorted laugh. "It's a birth defect, that's all. Nothing to worry about. You'll get used to it. It's not like I'm some hellish demon that's going to rip you apart," he said, making a tearing sound with his mouth and snorting again. We all gave each other a what the hell look. "Boys, you need to excuse Edgar here. He's kind of, well, unique," Bob said from the couch. "But he's harmless." "It's cool. Devil dude. We don't judge," Derek said. Stephen then raised his hand. "Stephen Rattler, drums," he said. "Derek McCarb, bass guitar. Ricky Blaze, guitar. Corey Sims, singer. Mikey Z, I play guitar too." "Nah man," Derek said. "This guy plays lead guitar. He's a beast dude." "Wonderful," Edgar said, writing it all down on his notepad. "We've got to get a picture for the album cover. And I'm thinking a group picture. So all 5 of you stand together back to front, shortest to tallest, over by that wall," he said, and pointed behind us. He reached into the top drawer of the filing cabinet to his left and produced a small Polaroid camera. He then walked behind us, reached up to the ceiling and pulled down a large green screen from it. "Stand in front of this," he said. So we did, and Edgar took the picture, pulled it from the camera, shook it a little, and handed it to Bob. "Wonderful," he said. "We'll add in a picture of some flames or something equally as cool behind you. Now we need a band name. What do you call yourselves?" Edgar asked. "Blackened Image," we all answered in unison. "Corny, but okay," Edgar replied. "Now since there are 5 of you, we are going to break up the recording sessions into 5 different segments. The drums will be recorded first, then the bass, then the rhythm guitar, then lead guitar, and finally vocals." Bob then shifted around on the couch, the leather squeaking as he did. "If you're not recording, feel free to wander around and check this place out. It's really cool down here. Well, actually it's hot. Really hot. But anyway, we have a cafeteria, as well as a gift shop," Bob said. "Really? Cool. I can get Pops a coffee cup," Ricky said. "Ricky, we're in hell. As in hell, you know? Hell," I said. "I know, man. My Pops will be the first in our neighborhood to have a coffee cup from hell," Ricky said excitedly. I just threw my hands up in frustration, and Bob started laughing. "What?" Ricky said. "Like he said, this is hell, not some plush resort in the Bahamas. We don't have a cafeteria or a gift shop. I was messing with you," Bob said, laughing. "That was messed up, man. You're an asshole," Ricky said, disappointed. "I am the devil after all," Bob said sarcastically. "All righty then," Edgar said. "Now do any of you play the keyboard?" "Keyboard?" Derek asked. "No, we ain't some Bon Jovi bubblegum band. We're a kick-ass rock band." "Well, you are now," Edgar replied, reaching for the large stack of papers on the control board. "Here is the sheet music for all your instruments. Drums for you, bass for you, guitars for both of you. I'll take the keyboard, and the lyric sheets are for you. Now there are 15 songs here that Mr. Belts himself has arranged for you. We're going to record all 15 tracks for all the instruments, mix them, add the vocals, thus creating the songs, then scale it down to fit the timeline for the album." I think I can play the keyboard parts. I dabble a little. Sound good? Great. Let's get started. Drummer guy, you're up first. No way, man, Derek said in protest. We want to write our own songs. This is bullshit. Bob stood up quickly and began yelling as he walked. Well, not really walked, more like glided. I never saw his feet move. Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be famous? Have a big house and get all the girls? He yelled. Yeah, but, Derek replied. Then shut your mouth and play the goddamn songs, Bob screamed demonically. Right before Bob started yelling, I began looking over the sheet music for each song. Something looked familiar to me. The Legends of Angels Run, Laugh at Me, Forever and a Day. It didn't hit me until I read the fourth song title, Before the Blackest Dark of Dawn. Wait a minute. Derek, stop, I said loudly. What? They both screamed at me in unison. Corey, let me see your lyric sheets, I said. I began reading the words to the first song, the second, then the third, and so on, until I'd read them all. I know these titles. I know these songs. They're my songs. I wrote these lyrics, I announced. I want to know how you got my songbooks and all our gear, I yelled at Bob. Nice try, kid, but that's not going to work on me. But I'll tell you anyway. I have been wanting, no pun intended, to get into the music business for quite some time. You see, I have been keeping a close eye on all of you, even before you made your little deals with my associate, Bob said. So I devised a plan and decided to take a trip up to the human world about 3 weeks ago, in search of a band to assist me in executing my plan. Now, I'm too sophisticated to walk anywhere for any long periods of time, so I needed a vehicle. I planted a brick of cocaine inside a limousine that I saw parked on the street that had a driver in it. I made a call, he was arrested, and before that smuck from the towing service could pick it up, I had a friend steal it. That was the guy in the other jail cell, the driver of the limo, right? I asked. Very good, young man. I knew you were the smart one, Bob said. I drove around endlessly for about 2 weeks, human world time that is, and I saw people trying to play different instruments and failing miserably. Even you, Mr. Hardcell, he said, pointing at me. I saw you through your bedroom window, trying to play from a book, and you must have really wanted to know how to play, since you're a beast now. You were not originally part of the plan, but when I saw you, I figured you would make a nice addition to it. Then a couple of days went by, and I saw you again. You were wearing that ugly, beat-up jacket of yours with the words, "We sold our souls for rock and roll," written in black marker on the back, as you were going to what you humans call a mall. You were playing air guitar as you walked through the parking lot. And I liked your jacket, so I sent my associate to meet with you. After you sold your soul, he returned to me and we drove downtown, where I soon discovered that you four were a band. Not a very good one, but still a band. And when I heard you playing in some old warehouse downtown and peered through the window, I knew I could use you as my stepping stone into the music industry. Now, to be completely honest, which is something I rarely ever do, he said, now looking at the other guys, you were not supposed to die that day. That crash was not supposed to happen. That was not part of the plan. It was just an unfortunate accident. My associate was just supposed to stop you and offer you that deal, and when you finally returned to the human world and crawled out of your graves, I knew I had to keep an eye on all of you. So I watched you from a distance. I saw you, he said, pointing at me, throwing all your stuff in the river. I saw you, pointing at Ricky, hanging that banner outside your daddy's store. I saw the both of you, pointing at Derek and Corey, buying weed from some street corner drug dealer. And I saw you, pointing at Stephen, breaking into your daddy's warehouse. I saw it all. and I knew I had to get all of you in one place in the human world for my plan to work. So you can imagine my delight when I saw the two of you, now pointing at Ricky and I. When you met up at that music store starting to hang out, and eventually arrived at that wonderful house you three were staying at, finally pointing at Stephen, Derek and Corey. I had nothing to do with that storm, but when I heard that cacophony of noise that you call a jam session going on, I knew I would be able to gain some leverage to use against you, so you'd voluntarily come with me, and I knew there were drugs and alcohol in the house, and that you'd all be arrested if the cops found out. Who do you think called in the noise complaint? Once you were arrested and taken away, I knew you would need your gear, as you call it, in order for my plan to remain on course. So, I walked up to the house and prepared to break in. That's when I tried the door and it was unlocked. You should always lock your doors, as someone like me could be lurking around, Bob said sarcastically. Then he laughed. I walked in, saw all of your gear and the books on the floor, snapped my fingers and sent it all here. I could have just snapped my fingers and sent you all here as well, which would have been easier, but I wanted to put on a show. I'm dramatic that way. After you were arrested and taken to jail, I equipped the limo with all the incentives, put on a non-threatening stupid outfit, walked into the police station, and the rest is history. But if the driver was in the jail cell and you were in the back with us, then who was driving the limo? Ricky asked. Okay, maybe you really are that brain dead, Bob said. Does the Lone Ranger go anywhere without Tonto? Does Scooby-Doo do anything without Shaggy? The old man, your associate, I said. Damn, you're good, Bob replied. By the way, I read all of your songs, and they were pretty good. Some of them sucked, but for the most part, pretty good. I arranged the music to save you the trouble from having to struggle through it, since none of you have ever written music before. Yes, I know that too, and I did it to help speed my plan along. So technically, one of you did write the songs, just not the music, Bob said. Fine, Derek scoffed. What plan? Corey asked. You'll find out in due time. But for now I must leave you in the capable hands of Edgar here. I have to go torture someone. I bid you all adieu. Then Bob left. Well, that was fun, Edgar said. Now let's get started. Drummer guy, you're up. My name's Stephen, dude, he said harshly. Edgar smiled. Stephen, you're up. Don't we need to practice the songs first? Ricky asked. You can if you want to, but it's really not necessary. If you can actually read sheet music, you should be able to read along with it, and play it accordingly. If you mess up, we can record it from where you left off, and I can piece it all together at the end. Haven't you ever been in a studio before? Edgar asked. No, we all responded in unison. The only one that has to actually learn anything is the lead guitarist, and that would be you, right? He asked. Yeah, I replied. You actually have to learn the whole entire piece, because it'll have to be recorded all at once, but you'll have plenty of time to practice and learn the songs before the tour starts. I sat down on the couch and Ricky sat next to me. I looked through each page, memorizing the solos. Photographic memory, remember? But I began to get tired, so I softly mumbled to myself, I want to stay awake. I felt a cold chill go down my spine, and suddenly I was at full attention. What? Ricky asked. You're mumbling to yourself, man. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just trying to psych myself up, I replied. Corey and Derek were standing by the control board watching Edgar turn knobs and press buttons, and as Stephen went behind the drum kit, he placed the papers on a small pedestal table to his right, put on the headset, grabbed his drumsticks, tapped them together and did a warm-up solo for a few seconds. Ready, he announced. Edgar hit a button on the control board that I assume was to record, and the tape on the reel-to-reel machine started moving. the recording sign lighting up red over the entrance door to the room. "Tape rolling, song 1, take 1, Edgar said into his microphone, then gave the go signal to Stephen. Surprisingly, he played the whole song in one take. The tracks were catchy, poppy rhythmic bubblegum crap that repeated the same patterns with a few change-ups, add-ins and transitions thrown in, and with the drums, bass and the rhythm guitar all recorded, Edgar said, "We'll have to wait until..." He looked at his notepad. "Mikey here learns the solos to continue recording." "I'm ready now, but you can tell me what solo you want me to play. You know, the title of the song," I said. Everyone just stared at me, even Edgar. "You are a beast, dude," Derek yelled. "Yeah, okay, let's do it," Edgar replied, shrugging his shoulders. I got up, left my papers on the couch, and walked into the recording room, putting on the headset, taking off my glasses, and put them on top of an amp. I picked up my guitar, grabbed a pick, and stood there. And Edgar announced the first song, giving me the go signal, and I played the solo perfectly, as well as the other 14 solos. I walked back into the studio, Edgar standing up and clapping his hands, and he said, "I've never seen anyone do that before. You are a real beast." Corey recorded his vocals all in one take as well, adding a few words and removing some to keep up with the timing of the song. Edgar adding his real tape along with everything else that had been recorded so far. I'd never actually heard any of my songs being sung before, except for me singing them, but that didn't count, so I was totally excited. Edgar then showed Derek and Corey what button to press to start recording, what button to press to stop, and what to say at the beginning of them. Song whatever, take whatever, so he could record the keyboard parts. We all stood there looking through the window as he did, and he messed up during recording a few times. It took several takes, but he finally made it through all 15 songs. I think he was happier than I was. Anyway, he walked into the studio and said, "That's a wrap," and he smiled, taking his tape off the reel, then said, "You're all free to go. I'll mix all the songs together and present them to Mr. Belts for approval. We'll take care of the rest. Your first album should be out in about a week, human time." "A week? That's it?" Stephen asked. "Yup, it won't be long now. Just go out this door, take the first elevator on your left. I think it's the one with the up arrow, and you'll be back in your world in no time. It was nice to meet you guys," he said, high-fiving us all. "Later, dude. See you later. Thanks a lot, man. Peace, dude." "Bye, Edgar," we all said as we walked out the door and headed to the elevator, which seemed a lot further away than it was when we first passed it. However, when we were about to finally reach the elevator, I realized I'd left my glasses on the amplifier. How I hadn't realized until then is beyond me, but I ran back to the studio and slowly pushed open the door to hear what sounded like Corey's vocals tape being played backwards, and what sounded like Edgar speaking, but it was too low for me to hear what he was saying. I pushed the door open a little further to see Edgar, but it wasn't the Edgar that I knew, that I'd met that day. Sitting in front of a portable reel-to-reel machine with his back to me and speaking into a microphone was this huge, muscle-bound colossal of a creature wearing Edgar's clothes. Well, not really wearing them as they were torn, shredded and hanging off of its body. The creature formerly known as Edgar was still speaking with his voice, and how that is even possible is beyond me, but it was. It had reddish-white transparent skin, and I could see all of its muscles and internal organs through it. Its back had large white pointy spikes protruding from its spine, and the back of its head showed that it still had Edgar's hair, but also had white spiked horns protruding from either side of it. I could now hear clearly what Edgar, well, the creature, was saying. "Come give yourself freely to the Prince of Darkness, for he is your new Lord and Savior. Fall to your knees and relinquish your soul. Destroy all that is good, deny all that is righteous. Give praise to the one true Master, the almighty, all-powerful Satan." Now I've heard of backmasking before. It was in an interview by one of those PMRC people. You know who they were, right? Well, in case you don't, they were a bunch of, as Blackie Lawless lead singer of Wasp said on their Live in the Raw album, a bunch of Washington wives who had nothing better to do than to take aim at hard rock and heavy metal music for its sexual, suggestive, and sometimes violent lyrics. I guess they'd never listened to any Conway Twitty songs. If you want to hear what I'm talking about, just listen to a few of them. Anyway, they also claimed that there were hidden satanic messages that could be heard if a tape or record was played backwards, which is what they called backmasking. They're the ones responsible for all the warning labels that you find on CDs nowadays, and I always thought it was bullshit. However, at that moment, I knew I was wrong. "What the hell?" I yelled, and as I did so, the creature turned around and I could finally see its face. It had big, dark, black eyes that blinked sideways, sharp, pointy ears similar to Mr. Spock's, 2 little holes where the nose should be, a mouth that stretched from ear to ear, and what looked to be an inverted cross carved into the middle of its forehead. But the weirdest, most messed up part about the whole thing, as if that wasn't weird enough, is that the creature was wearing Edgar's glasses. It let out a high-pitched demonic growl, showing a mouth full of black, rotten, decaying, broken human teeth, and its breath smelt like burnt flesh, rotten potatoes, and foot sweat. I could smell it from where I was standing. It swung its arm out as if to try and grab me, then swiftly jumped at me from its sitting position. I screamed in fear as I quickly turned around and slammed the door behind me. "Forget those glasses, I'll get a new pair," I thought, as I started running down the hallway screaming. I heard the cracking sound of wood breaking and the loud thumping sound of the creature's feet. I turned my head as I ran to see this thing chasing after me, but luckily for me, this thing was incredibly slow. "Hit the button! Get inside! Hurry!" I screamed to the guys as I ran as fast as I could to the elevator. Once at the elevator door, the bell dinged and it opened up, so the 4 of them ran inside screaming, after obviously seeing the creature behind me. But I was still a good distance away. "Mikey, hurry up! Run! Come on!" they all screamed, waving their arms for me to hurry up. The elevator door began to shut just as I'd reached it, and I barely squeezed through the doors. As I got in, I fell to the floor, scrambling then to get to my feet. But just before the door closed completely, one of the creature's arms came through and was just inches away from us. Finally, though, the door closed, cutting off the arm of this thing that was Edgar, and as it fell to the floor, whipping around like fish out of water, it oozed a dark green liquid. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed my video. And if you did, could you please give me virtual hugs by subscribing and clicking that notifications button. I also have a Patreon page and YouTube channel membership if you'd like to support me further. Thank you again for being here. Keep being creepy.